สวัสดีครับภาษาอังกฤษก่อนนอนวันนี้เราจะมาพูดถึงเรื่องประสบการณ์ในการไปเที่ยวต่างประเทศให้ฟังกันนะครับถ้าพร้อมแล้วไปเริ่มกันเลย
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, I want to tell you a long story about my first trip to another country. I traveled alone for the first time, and honestly, I was excited, nervous, happy, and also a little scared. In this episode, I will talk slowly and clearly. So relax, listen carefully, and enjoy the story. Let's begin. I still remember the day I decided to travel abroad. At that time, I was working very hard every day. I woke up early in the morning, went to work, came home late, ate dinner, and slept. Every day felt the same. One night, I was sitting in my room and watching travel videos online. I saw beautiful beaches, clean streets, delicious food, and happy people. Then I thought to myself, I want to travel too. But there was one problem. I had never traveled to another country before. I was worried about many things. What if I got lost? What if I could not speak English well? What if something bad happened? Even though I was worried, I still wanted to try. So, little by little, I started planning my trip. The first thing I did was choose a country. I wanted a place that was safe, beautiful, and easy for beginners. After thinking for many days, I decided to go to Japan. I always wanted to visit Japan because I liked Japanese food, anime, clean cities, and beautiful nature. When I finally bought the airplane ticket, I felt very excited. It suddenly became real. I remember looking at my phone again and again just to check the ticket. I smiled every time I saw it. Then I started preparing for the trip. I watched many videos about Japan. I learned simple Japanese words. For example, arigato means thank you, sumimasen means excuse me, konnichiwa means hello. I also learned how to use the train system. Many people said the train system in Japan was confusing. That made me nervous. I also prepared my clothes. I checked the weather every day. I bought a new jacket because people said it would be cold. I even bought a small travel bag. Every night after work, I prepared something for the trip. Honestly, preparing for the trip was already fun. Finally, the travel day arrived. I woke up very early in the morning. I think I only slept for 3 hours because I was too excited. I checked my passport many times. Passport, wallet, phone, charger, everything was ready. I took a taxi to the airport. The sky was still dark. The roads were quiet. When I arrived at the airport, I suddenly felt nervous. There were many people. Some people were carrying large suitcases. Some people were saying goodbye to their families. Some people looked tired. Others looked excited like me. I walked slowly inside the airport. I checked the big screen for my flight number. Then I went to check in my luggage. At first, I was afraid to speak English, but the airport staff was kind. She smiled and helped me. After that, I went through security. I took off my jacket and put my bag into the machine. Everything was fine. Then I waited at the gate. While waiting, I bought a cup of coffee. I sat near the window and watched the airplanes outside. I remember feeling very happy in that moment. I thought, wow, I'm really doing this. Soon, it was time to board the airplane. I walked inside slowly. It was my first long international flight. I found my seat near the window. I was happy because I could see outside. Next to me was an older man. He smiled at me and asked, "First time traveling?" I laughed and said, "Yes." He told me not to worry. He said traveling was one of the best experiences in life. That made me feel more relaxed. When the airplane started moving, my heart beat very fast. Then the airplane flew into the sky. I looked outside the window. The city became smaller and smaller. The clouds looked beautiful. It felt strange.
I was leaving my country for the first time. During the flight, I watched movies and listened to music. The air attendants gave us food. Honestly, airplane food was better than I expected. I also tried to sleep, but I was too excited. After several hours, the captain announced that we would arrive soon. I looked outside the window again. I could see buildings, roads, and lights. Japan looked beautiful from the sky. When the airplane landed, many people clapped. I smiled. I finally arrived. When I entered the airport, I noticed something immediately. Everything was very clean and organized. People walked quietly. Nobody pushed each other. The airport staff was polite. I followed the signs to immigration. I was nervous again because I worried about my English, but everything went smoothly. The officer checked my passport and let me enter. After that, I picked up my luggage. Then I walked outside the airport. The cold air hit my face immediately. It was colder than I expected. I could see my breath in the air. At first, I did not know how to go to my hotel. I looked at the train map and felt confused. There were so many lines and station names. For a few minutes, I just stood there quietly. Then a Japanese woman noticed me. She asked, "Can I help you?" I showed her the address of my hotel. She smiled kindly and explained which train I should take. I thanked her many times. That moment made me feel warm inside. I realized that even in another country, kind people still exist everywhere. Finally, I got on the train. The train was very quiet. Almost everyone looked at their phones. Some people were sleeping. Nobody spoke loudly. I looked outside the window during the ride. The city lights were beautiful. Everything looked new and exciting. After about 40 minutes, I arrived near my hotel. I walked through small streets with many restaurants and convenience stores. I could smell ramen and grilled meat in the air. Honestly, I felt hungry immediately. When I arrived at the hotel, I checked in. The room was much smaller than I expected, but it was clean and comfortable. I put my bag down and sat on the bed. For a few minutes, I just stayed quiet. Then I smiled. I was really in Japan. Even though I was tired, I still wanted to explore, so I changed my clothes and went outside again. The streets at night were beautiful. Bright signs covered the buildings. People walked everywhere. Some people were shopping, some were eating with friends, others were taking photos. Everything felt alive. I went into a small ramen restaurant. The restaurant was tiny. There were only about 10 seats. I sat quietly and looked at the menu. But there was another problem. I could not read Japanese. I felt nervous. Finally, I pointed at a picture on the menu. The worker smiled and nodded. A few minutes later, my ramen arrived. The smell was amazing. The soup was hot and rich. The noodles were soft. The meat was delicious. Honestly, it was one of the best meals of my life. At that moment, I understood why people loved Japanese ramen so much. After dinner, I went into a convenience store. Japanese convenience stores are incredible. They sell almost everything: food, drinks, snacks, desserts, socks, toothbrushes, and many other things. I bought some snacks and a hot drink. Then I returned to the hotel. I took a shower and lay on the bed. I was extremely tired, but before sleeping, I thought about the whole day. In just one day, I had already experienced so many new things. I felt proud of myself. The next morning, I woke up very early. Sunlight entered through the small window. I opened the curtain and looked outside. People were already walking to work. The city was awake. I got dressed and went outside. That morning, I wanted to visit famous places in Tokyo. First, I went to a shrine. The shrine was peaceful and beautiful. Tall trees surrounded the area. People walked quietly. I could hear birds and the soft sound of the wind. I bought a small lucky charm from one of the shops. Then I watched people praying. Even though I was a tourist, I tried to be respectful. After visiting the shrine, I went to a busy shopping area. There were giant screens, loud music, and huge crowds. Everything felt energetic. I visited many stores. Some sold anime figures, some sold clothes, others sold electronics. I spent a long time looking around. At one store, I bought a small souvenir for my family. I also bought keychains for my friends. Around lunchtime,
I entered a sushi restaurant. This restaurant had a conveyor belt. Small sushi plates moved around the restaurant. I thought it was very interesting. I tried salmon sushi, tuna sushi, shrimp sushi, and egg sushi. Everything tasted fresh. I wanted to eat more, but I also wanted to save money. Traveling can become expensive very quickly. In the afternoon, I visited a large park. Many people were sitting on the grass. Some people were reading books, some were having picnics. Children were running around and laughing. I sat on a bench and relaxed. Traveling alone felt peaceful sometimes. I could move slowly. I could stop anywhere. I could think quietly. But honestly, there were also moments when I felt lonely. Sometimes I wanted someone to talk to. Sometimes I wanted to share the experience with another person. Still, traveling alone helped me learn more about myself. That evening, I visited a famous tower. The view from the top was incredible. I could see the entire city. Buildings stretched far into the distance. Cars looked tiny from above. The sunset painted the sky orange and pink. I took many photos, but honestly, the photos could not fully capture the feeling. Some moments are more beautiful in real life. After returning to the hotel that night, I called my family. I told them about my day. My mother asked many questions. She wanted to know if I was eating well. She also asked if I was safe. I laughed. Even when children grow older, mothers still worry. On the third day, I decided to travel outside the city. I wanted to see nature, so I took a train to a small town near the mountains. The train ride was beautiful. I could see rivers, trees, and small houses. The air looked fresh. When I arrived, the town felt very quiet. It was completely different from Tokyo. There were fewer people and fewer cars. I walked slowly through the streets. Small shops sold local food and handmade items. The people smiled warmly. At lunchtime, I entered a tiny restaurant owned by an old couple. They could not speak much English. I could not speak much Japanese, but somehow we still communicated. They smiled often. The old woman showed me pictures on the menu. I ordered a hot bowl of noodles. While eating, I looked outside the window. Rain started falling softly. The mountains looked beautiful in the rain. That moment felt peaceful. After lunch, I entered a sushi restaurant. This restaurant had a conveyor belt. Small sushi plates moved around the restaurant. I thought it was very interesting. I tried salmon sushi, tuna sushi, shrimp sushi, and egg sushi. Everything tasted fresh. I wanted to eat more, but I also wanted to save money. Traveling can become expensive very quickly. In the afternoon, I visited a large park. Many people were sitting on the grass. Some people were reading books, some were having picnics, children were running around and laughing. I sat on a bench and relaxed. Traveling alone felt peaceful sometimes. I could move slowly. I could stop anywhere. I could think quietly. But honestly, there were also moments when I felt lonely. Sometimes I wanted someone to talk to. Sometimes I wanted to share the experience with another person. Still, traveling alone helped me learn more about myself. That evening, I visited a famous tower. The view from the top was incredible. I could see the entire city. Buildings stretched far into the distance. Cars looked tiny from above. The sunset painted the sky orange and pink. I took many photos.
But honestly, the photos could not fully capture the feeling. Some moments are more beautiful in real life. After returning to the hotel that night, I called my family. I told them about my day. My mother asked many questions. She wanted to know if I was eating well. She also asked if I was safe. I laughed. Even when children grow older, mothers still worry. On the third day, I decided to travel outside the city. I wanted to see nature. So I took a train to a small town near the mountains. The train ride was beautiful. I could see rivers, trees, and small houses. The air looked fresh. When I arrived, the town felt very quiet. It was completely different from Tokyo. There were fewer people and fewer cars. I walked slowly through the streets. Small shops sold local food and handmade items. The people smiled warmly. At lunchtime, I entered a tiny restaurant owned by an old couple. They could not speak much English. I could not speak much Japanese, but somehow we still communicated. They smiled often. The old woman showed me pictures on the menu. I ordered a hot bowl of noodles. While eating, I looked outside the window. Rain started falling softly. The mountains looked beautiful in the rain. That moment felt peaceful.
After lunch, I visited a lake. The water was calm. The mountains reflected on the surface. I stood there quietly for a long time. Sometimes traveling is not about doing many activities. Sometimes the best moments are simple moments. Just standing quietly, just breathing fresh air, just looking at nature. Later that day, I got lost. Honestly, I knew this would happen someday. My phone battery was low. I walked in the wrong direction. Soon, I could not find the station. At first, I tried to stay calm. I walked around and looked for signs. But after 30 minutes, I started feeling worried. The streets became quieter. It also started getting darker. Finally, I decided to ask for help. I entered a small shop and showed the worker the station name on my phone. The worker immediately tried to help me. He came outside and pointed in the correct direction. Then he even walked with me for several minutes. I was surprised by his kindness. Before leaving, he smiled and said, "Enjoy Japan." I thanked him deeply. That experience taught me something important. When we travel, we often remember not only the places, but also the people. Kind people can completely change your experience. That night, I finally returned safely to my hotel. I was tired, but I also felt stronger. I solved the problem by myself in another country. That gave me confidence. The next few days were also wonderful. I visited temples, I tried new foods, I walked through quiet neighborhoods, I drank hot coffee in small cafes. I watched people crossing busy streets. I spent hours exploring bookstores. One morning, I woke up very early to see the sunrise. The streets were almost empty. The city felt calm and peaceful. I bought coffee from a vending machine and sat quietly in a park. The sky slowly became brighter. Birds started singing. That morning became one of my favorite memories. Another day, I visited an arcade. The place was loud and colorful. People played games everywhere. I tried several games, but honestly, I was not very good. Still, I had fun. I even won a small toy from a claw machine after many tries. I felt strangely proud. One evening, I met another traveler from another country. We started talking while waiting for the train. He was traveling alone too. We talked about food, travel, work, and life. It felt nice to connect with someone new. Traveling sometimes reminds us that people around the world are not so different. Many people have similar dreams, worries, and hopes. As the trip continued, I became more confident. At first, I was afraid of everything. But after several days, I learned how to use the trains. I learned how to order food. I learned how to ask for help. I learned how to stay calm when problems happened. Most importantly, I learned that I was stronger than I thought. Before the trip, I often doubted myself. I thought maybe I was not brave enough.
But traveling alone changed me. It helped me grow. Of course, not everything was perfect. Sometimes I felt tired. Sometimes my feet hurt from walking too much. Sometimes I missed home. Sometimes I wanted familiar food. And sometimes I felt lonely. But honestly, those difficult moments also became part of the adventure. Travel is not only about perfect photos. Travel is also about challenges, mistakes, surprises, and learning. Eventually, the final day arrived. I couldn't believe how fast time passed. It felt like I had just arrived yesterday. That morning, I packed my suitcase slowly. I looked around the small hotel room. For a moment, I felt emotional. That little room had become part of my journey. Before leaving, I walked around the neighborhood one last time. I visited my favorite convenience store again. I bought one more coffee. I also returned to the ramen shop where I ate on the first night. The worker recognized me and smiled. That made me happy. After lunch, I took the train to the airport. This time, I did not feel nervous. I understood the train system now. I felt more relaxed. At the airport, I checked in my luggage and waited for my flight. While sitting near the window, I thought deeply about the trip. I realized something important. Before the trip, I thought traveling was only about seeing new places. But after the trip, I understood that traveling is also about discovering yourself. When you travel alone, you learn many things. You learn patience, you learn confidence, you learn independence, you learn how to adapt. And sometimes you even learn what truly makes you happy. When the airplane finally took off, I looked outside the window again. Japan slowly became smaller below me. I felt grateful. Grateful for the experiences, grateful for the kind people, grateful for the memories, and grateful that I was brave enough to go. After returning home, many friends asked me about the trip. Some asked, "Were you scared?" Honestly, yes, I was scared many times, but fear is normal. Trying something new is always a little scary. The important thing is not to let fear stop you. Some friends also asked, was traveling alone lonely? Sometimes, yes, but it was also peaceful. I had time to think. I had time to observe the world. I had time to understand myself better. And another question people asked was, would you do it again? My answer is always the same. Absolutely. That trip became one of the best experiences of my life. It gave me memories I will never forget. Now I dream about visiting more countries. Maybe South Korea, maybe Italy, maybe France. There's so many beautiful places in the world. And honestly, traveling taught me something else too. The world feels much bigger when you watch videos online, but when you actually travel, the world suddenly feels smaller. You realize that people everywhere laugh, work, eat, dream, and worry. We may speak different languages, but we are all human. That feeling stayed in my heart even after the trip ended. Now, whenever life feels stressful or boring, I sometimes look at my travel photos. I remember the cold air at the airport. I remember the taste of ramen. I remember the quiet train rides. I remember the mountain town in the rain. And I remember the feeling of freedom. Traveling gave me energy. It reminded me that life is full of experiences waiting for us. Sometimes we only need courage to begin. So if you are listening right now and dreaming about traveling someday, maybe this is your sign. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need perfect English. You do not need to know everything. You just need to start. Of course, prepare carefully. Save money. Learn basic words. Plan your trip. But don't wait forever. Sometimes the best memories happen when we leave our comfort zone. And honestly, even small adventures can change us. Maybe your first trip won't be perfect. Maybe you'll get lost. Maybe you'll feel nervous. Maybe you'll make mistakes. But one day, those moments may become your favorite memories. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. I hope this podcast helped you practice your English. And I also hope this story inspired you a little. Take care of yourself. Keep learning, keep improving. And maybe one day you will have your own amazing travel story too. See you again next time. Goodbye.